Hello and welcome back to the course on Introduction to Solid-State Physics. In the last class we had discussed about the quantum corrections to the classical free electron theory, and that is what is called as the Sommerfeld theory. And there we had obtained an expression for the electronic heat capacity, and we saw that it matches quite well with the experimental observations. Today we are going to discuss about the Fermi surface. Already we know what is Fermi function, what is Fermi energy, and related to that we'll define what is called as the Fermi surface, and we'll see that how the Fermi surface will be useful to obtain the electrical conductivity of the metals, which is quantum mechanically corrected. And then we'll see how we can verify the Weidmann-French law, and ultimately we'll obtain the proper Seebeck coefficient or the thermal power of the metals. So let us discuss today's topic, that is the Fermi surface. We know that the energy of an electron, of a free electron, is given by E is equal to half mv square. Since the electron is free, that's why there is no potential energy term, and the entire energy is kinetic, and v is the random speed of the electron. Now consider the motion of the free electrons in the velocity space. That means we are having the three axes, that is Vx, Vy and Vz. In the real space it is the x, y and z axis. In the velocity space it is the Vx, Vy and Vz axis. And consider a single point inside the velocity space, and any point inside the velocity space will correspond to a particular unique velocity with a particular magnitude and direction. And inside this velocity space we can see that since the electrons are moving randomly, they are having all the random velocities, and all these points they correspond to the different random velocities of the electrons. And we can see that at T equal to 0 Kelvin, so let us consider the case when the temperature is 0 Kelvin, we can see that there are no points outside a particular velocity, and that velocity is called as the Fermi velocity. So now let us look at this equation little bit more carefully, and let us analyze why we are getting a spherical shape here. So this v square, if I write it in terms of the Vx, Vy and Vz components, so this can be written as Vx square plus Vy square plus Vz square. And for an electron, this energy, if it is constant, and it is means the mass of the electron, which is a constant, then we can obtain that for an electron this term summation of Vx square will be a constant. Let us call it as a square. For a particular energy this is a constant, and this corresponds to the equation for a sphere, which is x square plus y square plus z square is equal to a square. So this corresponds to a sphere. That's why you are getting this kind of spherical shape in the velocity space for the motion of the free electrons in the metals. So now we have defined the highest velocity, and we call it as the Fermi velocity, and this is the radius of this sphere, and they are related with the Fermi energy as Ef is equal to half mvf square. And since the points which are existing outside the sphere, they correspond to energies greater than the Fermi energy, that's why they are empty. So only inside this sphere we are having the points. Outside the sphere at T equal to 0 Kelvin they are unoccupied, and hence they are empty, whereas all the points inside the sphere are completely full. And this kind of sphere is called as the Fermi sphere, and the surface of the sphere is called as the Fermi surface. We will come to know in our later modules that the Fermi surface plays a very significant role in deciding the transport properties of the solids, and normally it remains unaffected by the temperature because only very few electrons are excited from inside the Fermi surface or inside the Fermi sphere to the outside with increase in the temperature. This we have already seen while discussing the Fermi function. So what is a Fermi sphere? It is a sphere whose radius is the Fermi velocity, and the surface of this Fermi sphere is called as the Fermi surface, and it is related with the Fermi energy by this relation, that is the relation for the kinetic energy. EF is equal to half mvf square, and at absolute 0 Kelvin inside the Fermi sphere all the points are occupied and there are no points outside the Fermi sphere. So the Fermi surface separates the occupied and the unoccupied region at T equal to 0 Kelvin. So now let us look at the Fermi surface and the Fermi sphere under the influence of an applied electric field, and let us try to obtain the expression for the current density. We had already obtained using the classical Drude model. Let us see what happens when we apply the quantum mechanical corrections, and then let us apply the quantum corrections to see the current density. And before that, let us have a rough estimate of the Fermi speed. So what is the magnitude of the Fermi velocity? So that we can obtain provided we have a rough idea about the Fermi energy. For metals, we know that the Fermi energy is roughly around 5 electron volt, because the electron concentration is around 10 to the power 22 per centimeter cube, and we know the relation between the Fermi energy and the electron concentration, and from there we can obtain the Fermi energy, which will come roughly to be 5 electron volt. So if you substitute the value of this Fermi energy, then we can obtain an expression or the proper value for the Fermi speed, and that comes out to be around 10 to the power 6 meter per second, which is really very large. It is only 1/100th of the speed of light in vacuum. What it implies? This implies that the electrons are moving very fast at the Fermi surface, and this discussion will be discussing more about this after we know about the band theory of the solids. Then we'll discuss more about the transport properties of the solids, where we'll encounter this Fermi surface, and in fact we will come to know how we can construct the Fermi surface experimentally. That will come in the 5th or in the 6th module. So for the time being, we know the Fermi speed is around 10 to the power 6 meter per second, and with this, now let us apply the electric field and let us see how the Fermi surface or the Fermi sphere is going to be shifted, and how we can obtain an expression for the current density in the metals. In the absence of an electric field, this is the case. So as I told, all this speed, all these points here, they correspond to certain velocity, and associated with one particular velocity, suppose v, there is another velocity which is minus of v. The magnitude remains the same, but the direction is opposite. So these two velocities, they compensate each other or they cancel each other, so that the net current is 0. And this is why, even though all the electrons, all the free electrons are moving at different random velocity, the net current inside the metal in the absence of an electric field is 0, because each velocity is having another pair of velocity, another pair. So they exist in the pairs. One is in the pair, both these elements are having the same magnitude, but they are having different directions, so they cancel each other and the net current is 0. So now let us see, when we apply an electric field, what happens to this Fermi surface. Let us apply the electric field along this Vx direction, and we will see that the Fermi surface is getting displaced, or we call it as it is getting drifted in the opposite direction, that of the electric field. and already from the classical Drude model we know the expression for the drifting velocity. It is E tau by m. So this is the velocity with which the Fermi surface is going to be displaced in a direction opposite to the direction of the electric field. So now let us have a close look at this particular displaced and the undisplaced Fermi sphere. So we can find out one region which is going out of this undisplaced sphere. So the region which is coming out of this undisplaced sphere, so there is no opposite velocity for this particular points, whereas inside this particular undisplaced sphere, for every velocity we are having another opposite velocity which cancels it, so that the net current becomes 0, whereas the current contributed by the velocity which is present in this shaded region, they are not compensated. So actually they are uncompensated and they give rise to the particular current, whereas the electrons here, they do not contribute anything to the current. So the current that we observe in the metals is only because of this uncompensated electrons, the velocity of this uncompensated velocity of the electrons, whereas the points here, they do not contribute to the current. They only these points, they contribute to the current. So now let us find out how much fraction of the electrons are present in this outside region which is not overlapping with the undisplaced sphere, and that fraction is Vd by Vf, because Vf is the radius of this Fermi sphere, undisplaced Fermi sphere, and Vd is the velocity with which the Fermi sphere is moving in the opposite direction. So the fraction which remains uncompensated means the fraction of this velocity which is not being cancelled by the other counterpart is Vd by Vf, and the total number of electrons inside this region will be, because we know n is the electron concentration, that means n is the number of electrons per unit volume. So the corresponding electron concentration which remains uncompensated, or the fraction of the electrons which contribute to the current or current density, will be n into Vd by Vf. So we can calculate the current density. We know that it is, how we define J. J is the electron concentration times the charge of the electron and the drift velocity. So now this concentration will be replaced with n into Vd by Vf, and this will be replaced by Vf, because we are focusing only on the electrons which are at the Fermi surface. So Vd will be replaced by Vf and n will be replaced by n into Vd by Vf. Since each electron has a velocity nearly equal to the Fermi velocity, so this is what we have written. This is the fraction of the electrons or the electron concentration which contribute to the current. E is the charge of the electron and Vf is the velocity of the electron. So we can see that we are coming back to the same relation that we had seen in the classical Drude model. So the current density remains the same. But what is this Vd? If you write it in terms of the relaxation time, you know that Vd can be written as E tau by m. Now this tau will correspond to the Fermi surface. So tau f now becomes is the collision time of the electron at the Fermi surface. We are not bothered about the collision time which is not existing at the Fermi surface. So we are only bothered about the collision time of this electron at the Fermi surface, because now the velocity of the electron we are considering is Vf, So that is the only difference. So earlier it was n e square tau by m into E in the classical root model, whereas in the Sommerfeld theory, which is quantum mechanically corrected, it becomes n e square tau f by m into E, where tau f corresponds to the collision time of the electron at the Fermi surface. Now what will happen to the electrical conductivity? So we can use the same relation and we can find out that sigma will be this much, that is n e square tau f by m, and this can be written as the ratio of this tau f can be written as the ratio of the mean free path and the Fermi speed, that is lambda by Vf. So this is how we can represent the electrical conductivity in terms of the Fermi speed. And in fact, this Fermi energy can also be written in terms of the Fermi momentum. We know that the Fermi momentum Pf is equal to h cross kf, where kf is the Fermi wave vector. So this is the kinetic energy of the free electron, that is half mv square or half mvf square, and it can be written as v square by 2m. In the place of Pf, we have written h cross kf. So the Fermi energy of the electron can be written as h cross square kf square by 2m. And already we know the expression for the Fermi energy, which is h cross square by 2m into 3 pi square n to the power 2 by 3. So if you compare this with this, then we can obtain an expression for the Fermi wave vector as a function of the electron concentration. So it is 3 pi square n to the power 1 by 3. In fact, we can do some mathematical rearrangement and we can write the conductivity in terms of the Fermi wave vector, that is h cross kf. And finally, again we can obtain an expression. If you substitute and do some mathematical rearrangement, then finally we can obtain sigma to be equal to some constant times Sf, where Sf is the surface area of the Fermi sphere. It is 4 pi Vf square, which is the surface area of the Fermi sphere, which is enclosing the Fermi sphere. And these terms are constant, and if we measure the Fermi sphere, we will come to know that for metals the surface area of the Fermi sphere is much larger compared to that of the insulators. That's why the metals are having more conductivity, electrical conductivity, than that of the insulators, because the metals are having larger Fermi surface area, whereas the insulators are having smaller Fermi surface area. And this mathematical rearrangement is quite simple, and I am not going to discuss it step by step. I think we can follow it. What is important is the final result. We can write the conductivity, the electrical conductivity, as some constant times the surface area of the Fermi sphere, which is 4 pi Vf square. And for the metals, this surface area is more. Experimentally it can be verified, whereas for the insulators this surface area of the Fermi sphere is smaller. That's why the insulators show low electrical conductivity and the metals have higher electrical conductivity. So using the quantum corrections, we can distinguish between the metals and the insulators in terms of the area of the Fermi sphere. So this is one of the success of the Sommerfeld theory. When you compare the Sommerfeld theory with the Drude theory, this is one of the advantages of using the quantum corrections. In the Drude theory, we cannot distinguish between the metals and the insulators. Why the metals show higher conductivity than the insulators cannot be explained using the Drude theory. Whereas in the Sommerfeld theory, we can see that the metals are having larger Fermi surface area, and as a result they are having higher electrical conductivity, whereas the insulators are having smaller Fermi surface area but they are having lower electrical conductivity. So using the quantum corrections, we can distinguish between the electrical conductivity of the metals and the insulators. Now this is all about the Fermi surface. So now let us apply whatever we have learned in the discussion of the Sommerfeld theory to obtain the thermal conductivity. From the classical root model, this is the expression for the electronic thermal conductivity, which is 1 by 3 VTH square tau CVEL. So now using the quantum corrections, we have to modify this relation. So what we have to modify? First thing is that this VTH has to be replaced by VF, which is the Fermi speed, and we have to use the modified expression for the heat capacity, which is kBT by EF times the classical term, which is 3 by 2 NkV. Times some constant terms, pi square by some constant terms are there, but what is important is this kBT by EF. Quantum mechanically we know that this is pi square by 2 and kBT by EF, whereas classically it is 3 by 2 NkV. So this term is reduced by a factor of kBT by EF quantum mechanically. So we have to use these two corrections to the classical electronic thermal conductivity and obtain the quantum corrected thermal conductivity. So this is what we have mentioned here. So let me erase the ink. The quantum corrected heat capacity is kBT by EF times smaller than the classical estimated heat capacity, and another thing is the thermal velocity has to be replaced by the Fermi velocity VF, and VF we know that it is related to the Fermi energy in this way, that is root over of 2 EF by EM, as EF is half mVF square. After substituting these two, then we can obtain the expression for the thermal conductivity for the metals, and we can see that this is the thermal conductivity for the metals after quantum corrections. So here we can see that this tau has also been replaced. Earlier it was only tau, whereas in the quantum correction we have to replace it with tau f. So here I forgot to mention this tau also has to be replaced with tau f. So we are replacing VTH with VF, tau with tau f, and heat capacity is the newly obtained quantum corrected heat capacity, that is pi square by 2 NkB times kBT by EF, to obtain the modified expression for the thermal conductivity, which is quantum mechanically corrected, or you can call it as to be quantum corrected thermal conductivity. And we know that from the discussion already, we know that this is the expression for the electrical conductivity, that is Ne square tau f by m. So now we can verify the Weidmann-Franz law. That means at a fixed temperature the ratio between the thermal conductivity and electrical conductivity is a constant. Classically also we had obtained it, but let us verify it quantum mechanically whether we are have a better agreement with the experimental result or not. If you substitute the values, then we can obtain the Weidmann-Franz law as k by sigma t, which is equal to, this is the constant, pi square by 3 kb by e whole square, and it comes out to be 2.44 10 to the power minus 8 watt ohm per Kelvin square, which is much more in reasonably in good agreement with the experiment than that of the classical value. Classically it was 1.1, whereas quantum mechanically it is coming out to be 2.44, which has got a remarkable agreement with the experimental result. So this is the second success of using the quantum corrections to the classical root model. First one was what? We could be able to distinguish between the metals and the insulators in terms of their electrical conductivity. Second thing is that we can able to have a remarkable agreement with the experimental results for the Weidmann-Franz law. Then let us calculate the Seebeck coefficient or the thermal power. So if you do this proper substitution, then this is the expression for the Seebeck coefficient, or we call it as also thermal power, which is the ratio between the thermal current density to the electrical current density. So this can be written after doing the quantum corrections. This is the new factor, and what is more interesting here is this kBT by EF term. Earlier it was simply minus kB by 2E. There was no temperature dependence. Now we are having the temperature dependence, and the relation becomes minus 1.42 kBT by EF into 10 to the power minus 4 volt per Kelvin, which is much more in accordance with the experimental observations. And we saw that the thermal power is smaller than the classical values by an order of kBT by EF. This is the extra factor that we are getting in the thermal power expression. So this is the third major advantage of using the quantum corrections to the classical free electron theory. So three important points here. One is that we could able to distinguish between the metals and the insulators through the electrical conductivity. Second thing is that we could able to obtain a proper expression for the Weidmann-Franz law, which matches quite well with the experimental observations. And third is that the thermal power expression is much more in close with the experimental observations. And all these things are coming because of two major factors. One is the Fermi surface, and other one is the proper expression of the heat capacity of the solids. Classically we had overestimated the heat capacity. Now we had obtained the proper expression for the electronic heat capacity. So this is all about the classical and the quantum free electron theory. But one of the major disadvantages of this free electron theory is that it is only limited to the metals. In order to understand the properties of the other kinds of solids, that is the semiconductors and the insulators, we need to know the other counterpart, that is the how the nuclei or how the ions are arranged inside the solid, or in other sense we have to know what is the crystal structure of the particular solid and how it impacts the properties of the solid.